Chosen one, I am speaking directly to you now, not to everyone, not to the distracted, not to those who clicked out of curiosity. This is for the chosen one who felt something shift the moment these words reached your ears. Before your mind tries to analyze this, hear this clearly first. This is a message from God, and it has arrived in perfect divine alignment. You did not imagine the pull that brought you here. You did not stumble onto this by accident. You were led. There is a reason your spirit became still before your thoughts caught up. There is a reason your attention locked in. That is recognition, not coincidence. You have lived long enough feeling different without having language for it. You have walked through seasons where you questioned yourself, doubted your strength, and wondered why life seemed heavier for you than for others. That weight was not random. That pressure was not a mistake. You were being shaped. You were being prepared. And now, in this exact moment, something inside you knows this message is not just encouraging. It is confirming. It is reminding you of a truth you once buried to survive. God has been quiet lately, and you noticed it. The prayers felt unanswered. The signs felt delayed. The movement you expected did not come when you thought it would. But silence does not mean absence. Silence means divine preparation. God goes quiet when He is working deeply, not visibly. What looks like stillness on the surface is restructuring underneath. What feels like waiting is actually repositioning. The chosen one is never idle in God's hands, even when nothing appears to be happening. You are in the middle of a spiritual awakening, whether you named it or not. That awakening did not begin with peace. It began with discomfort, with detachment, with questions you could not explain to people who were not built to understand you. That awakening forced you to see clearly, to feel deeply, and to let go painfully. It stripped illusions. It challenged relationships. It disrupted routines. That is how awakening works for the chosen one. It does not come gently. It comes truthfully. There is a major shift approaching your life. Not a small improvement. Not a temporary breakthrough. A real shift. One that changes how you see yourself, how others see you, and how your life unfolds from this point forward. God never announces these shifts loudly. He prepares them quietly. He prepares you quietly. The silence you are in is intentional. The separation you experienced was necessary. The confusion you walked through was refining your discernment. Your divine calling has been activating even when you tried to ignore it. That pull toward purpose, that discomfort with surface-level living, that inability to pretend forever, those were signals. God does not call the chosen one into comfort first. He calls them into clarity. And clarity often arrives through pressure. You were being trained to stand without applause, to trust without evidence, to believe without validation. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are not broken for needing rest. You are not behind because your path looks different. Your path was designed differently. God does not rush preparation when destiny carries weight. He slows it down. He strengthens the foundation. He removes what cannot survive where you are going. That is why some doors closed without explanation. That is why some people drifted without conflict. That is why your soul outgrew spaces that once felt familiar. This message from God is not here to hype you. It is here to anchor you, to remind you that the war you feel is real. Light attracts resistance. Truth attracts testing. The chosen one always walks through fire before walking into visibility. You were never abandoned in that fire. You were being tempered by it, strengthened by it, awakened through it. If you feel this message settling into your chest instead of your mind, that is alignment. If something in you feels seen rather than entertained, that is recognition. If your spirit feels steady instead of excited, that is confirmation. You were called. You still are. And you are closer to understanding that now than you have ever been before. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called. The silence is not absence. Chosen one, return with me to the truth you felt at the very beginning, before doubt tried to speak louder than discernment. This is still a message from God. Nothing has changed since the first moment you recognized it. You are not imagining the quiet. You are not misreading the stillness. You are not abandoned, delayed, or forgotten. You were called, and calling always comes with seasons that test trust before revealing reward. God's silence is not withdrawal. It is not disinterest. It is not punishment. Silence is one of God's most powerful tools, especially with the chosen one. When God goes quiet, it is because instruction is moving from the outside to the inside. Words are no longer enough. External confirmation is no longer safe. You are being trained to hear differently, to see beyond noise, to stand without reassurance. This is not absence. This is preparation. Before every spiritual awakening reaches clarity, it passes through confusion. Before alignment feels peaceful, it feels lonely. Before strength feels natural, it feels heavy. God becomes quiet before a spiritual transition because noise would interfere with what is being built. Silence forces you inward. It removes distractions. It reveals what is real. It shows you what you relied on that cannot follow you forward. You noticed it when support systems started disappearing. Conversations changed. Familiar comforts stopped satisfying you. People who once understood you no longer could reach you. That was not rejection. That was refinement. The chosen one season always includes separation because elevation requires space. God will not allow old structures to collapse under new weight. So he removes them first. This is where fear often enters. The mind says something is wrong. The ego says you failed. The past says you are repeating a pattern, but the spirit knows better. The spirit recognizes training. When God is preparing you for responsibility, he reduces dependency. When he is preparing you for impact, he strengthens solitude. When he is preparing you for leadership, he teaches you how to stand without being seen. Your spiritual awakening did not make life easier. It made life clearer. That clarity was uncomfortable because it exposed misalignment. It showed you where you were shrinking to belong, compromising to survive, settling to feel safe. Silence removes the ability to distract yourself from truth. That is why it feels intense. That is why it feels long. That is why it feels personal. God's silence is where foundations are reinforced. It is where identity becomes internal instead of borrowed. It is where faith becomes lived instead of spoken. It is where the chosen one learns to trust God without signs, without urgency, without pressure. This is divine preparation happening beneath the surface. The ground is being strengthened, so the structure will not crack when the shift arrives. You were never meant to carry everyone with you. Some people were assigned to the old version of you, not the awakened one. Some comforts were designed for survival, not destiny. Some environments were safe, but limiting. God removes what would distract you from your divine calling, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The war you feel is real. Light always encounters resistance. Growth always triggers testing. Awakening always challenges comfort. You are not weak for feeling tired in this season. You are strong for still standing. You are strong for still listening. You are strong for not numbing yourself back into familiarity. The chosen one does not quit during refinement. They learn endurance. Silence teaches discernment. It teaches patience. It teaches obedience without applause. When nothing seems to move, something is being aligned. When no one understands, something is being protected. When answers delay, something is being perfected. God does not rush what carries purpose. He takes his time with those whose light is necessary. You were called because you can carry what others cannot. You can walk through uncertainty without losing integrity. You can feel deeply without becoming bitter. You can wait without surrendering faith. That is not accidental. That is training. That is preparation. That is why your path has never looked ordinary. This message from God is reminding you that the silence is not a sign to retreat. It is a signal to trust, to stay grounded, to stay open, to stay present. Your divine calling does not disappear in quiet seasons. It sharpens, it clarifies. It roots itself so deeply that when movement begins, nothing can shake you. Your light is necessary, not later, not after everything makes sense. Now, even in the quiet, especially in the quiet. The world does not need more noise. It needs grounded light. It needs awakened souls who have been refined, not rushed. It needs the chosen one, who learned to listen when God stopped speaking loudly. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. You are being repositioned for a major shift. Chosen one, return again to the first truth that anchored you here. This is still a message from God. Not metaphorical, not motivational, not imagined. You did not wake up different for no reason. You did not feel disconnected by accident. You did not lose interest in things you once chased because you became lazy or confused. You were called, and calling always begins on the inside before it ever shows itself on the outside. What you are experiencing now is repositioning. God never changes the environment of the chosen one before changing their internal posture. That would collapse you. Instead, he reshapes perception, desire, tolerance, and awareness first. That is why the shift feels internal before it becomes visible. You are being prepared for a major shift, and preparation always starts where no one can see it. You noticed the emotional detachment. Things that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. Conversations that used to excite you now feel empty. Drama exhausts you. Noise overwhelms you. This is not numbness. This is clarity. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your spirit is prioritizing truth over stimulation. This is a spiritual awakening, deepening, not fading. Your awareness has heightened. You feel energy now, not just words. You sense intentions, not just behavior. You can no longer ignore misalignment, even when it would be easier to pretend. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is discernment activating. God sharpens perception before increasing responsibility. He teaches you to read rooms before leading them. He trains you to sense danger before stepping into influence. Isolation followed naturally, not because you became antisocial, but because resonance changed. The chosen one cannot remain surrounded by what no longer matches their frequency. God will not force separation loudly. He allows distance to grow quietly. Invitations slow down. Connections fade, not out of punishment, but out of protection. Isolation is not abandonment. It is containment. You are being repositioned away from ambition and toward alignment. Ambition asks what benefits me. Alignment asks what serves purpose. You may have noticed your goals changing, your priorities shifting, your definition of success softening but deepening. That is divine calling activating. When calling awakens, ego goals lose their grip, validation loses its pull, speed loses its appeal. This stage feels uncomfortable because the old identity no longer fits and the new one has not fully emerged. You are standing between versions of yourself. That space feels unstable, but it is sacred. God does his most precise work in transitions. He removes what would interfere with obedience. He quiets what would distract from clarity. He prepares you for responsibility, not comfort. The war you feel internally is real. Light does not expand without resistance. Growth does not happen without friction. Calling does not activate without testing loyalty. You are being tested right now, not to fail you but to strengthen you. Tested in patience, tested in integrity, tested in faith without evidence. This is training for the shift you asked for before you knew the cost. Your outer world has not changed yet because your inner world is still being aligned. God does not rush manifestation when character is still forming. He does not elevate the chosen one until they can stand without ego, lead without control, and serve without resentment. That is why this phase feels slow. Precision takes time. This message from God is not here to rush you. It is here to stabilize you, to remind you that everything happening internally is intentional. Nothing is malfunctioning. Nothing is random. You are not regressing. You are being repositioned. The shift will feel sudden when it arrives, but you will recognize it because you have been prepared for it quietly. Your light is necessary. That is why the process is intense. That is why the refinement is deep. That is why shortcuts were denied. God does not prepare lightly those he intends to use impactfully. You were called because you can carry weight without becoming bitter. You can see truth without becoming cruel. You can hold authority without losing compassion. Stand firm in this season. Do not rush clarity. Do not chase noise. Do not return to what God already released you from. The major shift is approaching, and you are closer than your impatience allows you to see. Trust the internal work. Trust the silence. Trust the process shaping you. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Why others can still come with you, chosen one. Come back to the truth that grounded you from the very beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you are seeing, feeling, or losing. You were called, and calling always disrupts attachments before it establishes purpose. What you are walking through now is not random loss. It is intentional separation, and it is happening because your life is changing at a level many around you were never meant to reach. One of the most painful lessons in a spiritual awakening is realizing that not everyone who walked with you can walk into what comes next. This does not mean they were bad. It does not mean you are better. It means the assignment has changed. God removes people who cannot survive the weight of the next version of you, not to punish them, but to protect you. Every level of purpose requires a matching level of environment. Old relationships were built around old identities. When identity shifts, compatibility shifts. Conversations that once flowed now feel forced. Dynamics that once felt safe now feel draining. This is not arrogance. This is awareness. The chosen one cannot grow while constantly shrinking to keep others comfortable. Separation hurts because love was real. History was real. Shared survival was real. But survival is not the destination. God never called you to remain where you learned to cope. He called you to evolve. And evolution requires boundaries. Divine boundaries are not walls built in anger. They are gates built in wisdom. This is where many people misunderstand you. They call you distant, changed, cold. But what they cannot see is the cost of remaining accessible to everything. You had to choose clarity over closeness, alignment over attachment, obedience over approval. That choice is not easy. It is sacred. The chosen one season is marked by solitude, not because you are unloved, but because you are being refined. Leadership is not learned in crowds. Discernment is not sharpened in noise. God prepares his vessels privately before using them publicly. He isolates to insulate. He separates to strengthen. You may feel guilt for outgrowing people who supported you once. Release that guilt. Gratitude does not require permanence. Honor does not require access. You can love people without carrying them forward. Letting go without bitterness is spiritual maturity. It is understanding that seasons end without being failures. Some people could not come with you because they benefited from the version of you that no longer exists. Some relationships depended on your silence, your overgiving, your self-doubt. When you healed, the agreement broke. God did not remove them to hurt you. He removed them to stop the bleeding. The war you feel internally is real. Loneliness will try to convince you that separation was a mistake. Nostalgia will try to rewrite history. Fear will whisper that you will end up alone. But solitude is not your destination. It is your preparation. God is protecting your future by limiting access in the present. This is preparation for leadership and impact. You cannot lead with divided loyalty. You cannot serve with compromised discernment. You cannot carry light while dragging weight. God removes distractions before releasing influence. He clears space before sending alignment. Your divine calling requires emotional strength, not emotional dependency. It requires discernment, not people-pleasing. It requires trust in God, not attachment to familiarity. You are learning to stand without leaning, to listen without echo, to move without permission. This message from God is here to bring peace, not regret. You did not lose them. You completed that season. You are not alone. You are becoming. Your light is necessary. And that light requires clarity, not clutter. Do not chase what God already released. Do not shrink to regain access. Do not doubt yourself because others cannot follow. You were called to go ahead, not to stay behind, and the ones meant for where you are going will recognize you without explanation. Stand firm. Stay soft. Stay obedient. The loneliness will pass. The alignment will come. The purpose will unfold, and you will understand why this separation was mercy, not loss. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Conclusion. The shift is closer than you think. Chosen one, return to the truth that began this entire journey. This is a message from God, not a thought you created, not an emotion you imagined. You were called, and everything you have walked through was part of that calling. Even the moments that confused you, exhausted you, or made you question yourself. Nothing was wasted. Not the silence, not the waiting, not the losses. Every season served preparation. God's quietness was never abandonment. It was strategy. When God is silent, he is not distant. He is deliberate. He was working in places you could not see, strengthening foundations that would need to carry weight. He was reshaping you internally so that what arrives externally does not overwhelm you. God always prepares the vessel before he pours, and you have been prepared with precision. The major shift you have been sensing is closer than you think. It will arrive suddenly, but it will not feel foreign. It will feel familiar because you have already met it within yourself. You have already become the person capable of sustaining it. That is why the process took time. Loud preparation creates fragile outcomes. quiet preparation creates stability. Your spiritual awakening has matured. You no longer chase signs in desperation. You no longer beg for clarity. You no longer rush timing. You have learned how to stand in stillness without fear. You have learned how to trust God without controlling outcomes. That is readiness. That is spiritual strength. The chosen one steps into position calmly, not urgently, with certainty, not anxiety. You are no longer driven by ambition, but guided by alignment. You are no longer fueled by comparison, but anchored in purpose. This is the shift from wanting to being ready. Peace is settling into you now because resistance is releasing its grip. The war was real, but it did not defeat you. It refined you. You carry wisdom now where you once carried wounds. You carry restraint where you once carried reaction. You carry clarity where you once carried confusion. These are signs that divine preparation is completing its work. Trust God's timing without negotiating it. Obedience does not require full understanding. Stillness is not stagnation when God is involved. Remain grounded, remain patient, remain open. What is coming will require you to be steady, not rushed. Your divine calling is not a fantasy, it is responsibility. And you are ready because you allowed yourself to be refined instead of rushed. God does not elevate the chosen one until character can sustain calling. And now you can. Your light is necessary. Not later, not when everything is perfect. Now, in your calm authority, in your grounded presence, in your quiet obedience. The world does not need louder voices. It needs anchored ones. Chosen one, return with me to the beginning, not as a memory but as a truth that has been unfolding inside you the entire time. This is a message from God. Not a thought you created, not an emotion you imagined, not something you talked yourself into believing. You were called. You were always called. And everything you have walked through has been proof of that calling, even when it did not feel like it at the time. Nothing in your life has been wasted. Not the delays that frustrated you, not the silence that tested you, not the losses that reshaped you, not the waiting that forced you to confront yourself. God does not waste seasons, and He does not waste people, especially not the chosen one. What felt like stagnation was calibration. What felt like confusion was correction. What felt like isolation was insulation. You were being protected while you were being prepared. God's quietness was never a sign of distance. It was strategy. It was intention. It was precision. When God is loud, He is calling attention. When He is quiet, He is doing surgery. He was working beneath the surface where applause cannot interfere and outside opinions cannot contaminate the process. You were being rebuilt at levels you could not see, but you can feel now. You are standing at the edge of completion, not the end of your journey, but the end of a preparation cycle. The heaviness you carried is lifting because its assignment is finished. The resistance you felt is weakening because it has served its purpose. The questions that once haunted you no longer have the same power because clarity has replaced confusion. This is what readiness feels like. Not excitement, not anxiety, calm certainty. The major shift you sensed is not distant. It is close, closer than your fear wants to admit. It will arrive suddenly, but it will not shock you. It will feel familiar because you have already become the person capable of sustaining it. God prepares the chosen one internally, so the external change does not destabilize them. That is why the transformation happened quietly. That is why the waiting was long. That is why the process was personal. Your spiritual awakening has matured. You no longer need to be convinced of who you are. You no longer need validation to stay grounded. You no longer chase clarity because clarity lives inside you now. You understand timing. You respect process. You trust God without demanding explanations. That is spiritual adulthood. Certainty has replaced fear, not because life became predictable, but because you became rooted. You learned how to stand when answers were delayed. You learned how to move without forcing outcomes. You learned how to listen instead of reacting. These are the qualities required for what comes next. God does not elevate impulse. He elevates obedience. The chosen one steps into position quietly but powerfully, without noise, without urgency, without needing permission. You are no longer driven by ambition. You are guided by alignment. You are no longer motivated by comparison. You are anchored in purpose. This is the difference between wanting something and being ready for it. Peace has settled over you because preparation is completing its work. Peace before movement is a sign of alignment. Anxiety before movement is a sign of resistance. You are no longer resisting. You are cooperating. You are allowing. You are trusting. That is why your spirit feels steady, even though the path is still unfolding. Your divine calling was never about visibility alone. It was about responsibility, influence, impact, service. God was not shaping you to impress people. He was shaping you to carry weight without collapsing under it. That is why shortcuts were denied. That is why timing was protected. That is why silence was enforced. The war was real. The opposition was real. The testing was real. But so was your endurance. So was your integrity. So was your faith. You did not quit when it was easier to numb yourself. You did not retreat when doubt tried to overpower you. You stayed present. You stayed listening. You stayed willing. That is why you are here now. Your light is necessary. Not when everything is perfect. Not when everyone agrees with you. Not when conditions are ideal. Now, in your grounded presence. In your calm authority. In your steady obedience. The world does not need louder voices. It needs stable ones. It needs awakened souls who have been refined, not rushed. Trust God's timing without negotiating it. Obedience does not require full understanding. Stillness does not mean stagnation when God is involved. Remain grounded. Remain patient. Remain open. What is coming will require you to be centered, not frantic. Prepared, not pressured. This message from God has done what it was sent to do. It has reminded you of who you are. It has stabilized your faith. It has anchored your identity. Carry this knowing forward with calm certainty. And if you feel aligned with this moment, comment 777 as a sign of that alignment. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called.